You're listening to the Whole Hog Sports Podcast. And now, here's your host, Matt Jones.
We'll talk Razorback basketball portal today. We've got Anthony Kristensen here in studio with us. Want to tell you our show brought to you by Eggland's Best. When it comes to your game day, you want the best in your lineup, and that includes your eggs. Eggland's Best delivers more of the nutrition you need with 6 times more vitamin D and 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. You can score now with Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs. Visit egglandsbest.com for more information. Also brought to you by Bentonville Glass. They've been serving their community since 1971. Committed, professional, and versatile. If you're looking for a quality leader in Northwest Arkansas or looking for skilled craftsmanship, look no further than Bentonville Glass for all your glass market needs with the highest quality products. You can come by and see them at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. Portal season is in full force. I mean, I don't even know how many people have entered the portal.
A lot.
I would guess thousands at this point. I heard something the other day.
At least
that
a
over
few.
that like within I think a couple of days of the women's basketball portal opening, that there were already over 1,000 women in the portal. And I mean, we all know this. There is not the market for women's basketball players that there are for men, but still there's over 1,000 women in the portal. So you can only imagine that the men's number is going to be higher than that.
You would imagine so. I don't know what the exact number is, at the moment, but I've got the verbal commits verbal commits tweet notifications on. So my watch is buzzing. It seems like on a second by second basis. So it's a lot. I don't know the exact number, but it's a lot.
Do you get alert fatigue?
Yes.
I do. I tell you, I don't know what all you've got, and I'm sure what you've got alerts on for is something way different than mine. Mm-hmm. This is going to tell you a lot about my personality. I can tell you every time there's a tornado warning in the United States, I get an alert every time there is a tornado warning, which this time of year, that's probably it's not as frequent as somebody going into the portal, but here in a couple of weeks, it might be more frequent.
I mean, that's important stuff.
That's not the only thing.
That's important stuff.
I got some Razorback alerts on, and Adam Schefter.
I've got your alerts on.
Well, boy, I can only imagine how excited you must get. I have a sneaking suspicion one time, because I actually sent a follow-up tweet just to see if it would happen again. I sent a tweet one time from a deli where I was working one day. And this guy next to me, as soon as I hit it, his phone went off. Ding. And it sounded like a Twitter alert. It sounded like what my phone sounds like if I didn't have it on vibrate and the Twitter alert would go off. I'm like, that's odd. And so I sent another one and it ding. And so I think this guy who was sitting across the aisle from me, I don't know if he knew, I don't know if he knows who I am or not, but I think he had my alerts on.
That's fun.
Because it went off both times that I sent one.
Yeah, that's you're famous.
I don't know about that. I do not know about that.
The famous Matt Jones.
I will dispute
Come
that.
Get some photos with the Matt Jones.
Okay, let's move you in a different direction. How about this? Before we start talking about Arkansas men's basketball and the portal, Chuck Martin has left to go to North Carolina. Mm-hmm. It was kind of rumored, and then it happened. This is it Michael Malone, the new coach at UNC?
Yeah. Former Denver Nuggets coach. Yeah.
He and Chuck Martin coached together at Manhattan like 26, 27 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so they'll get back together in Chapel Hill. And think about Chuck Martin. Think about all of the blue blood programs where he has gone and coached. I mean, obviously he was at Kentucky before he came here. Not that Arkansas is that's a good basketball program. It's not Kentucky. It's not North Carolina. He was at Indiana at one point in time. I think he was on, and again, I think he was on a Final Four staff at South Carolina. Am I right about that? Or did he come in?
I believe so.
I'm not certain. I'm not sure if he was on that staff or if he came in the next year. But he was
on the national championship staff with John Calipari at Memphis.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. So, kind of interesting. He's going to get the associate head coach, which he had been an assistant head coach here at Arkansas. Arkansas's actually got two associate head coaches. You've got Kenny Payne and you've got Chin Coleman. who have those roles. So we'll see what Arkansas does. I know that there's some thought among people that maybe they just elevate Tyler Eulis or maybe they elevate Brad Calipari to one of these jobs. But either way, there's going to be, I think, a trickle-down effect where you're going to have another coach on the staff next year. It might not be the assistant head coach or whatever Chuck Martin's title was, but you're going to have a new voice on the staff.
Yeah. I'm intrigued to see where they go. Do they elevate Tyler Eulis? Do they elevate Brad Calipari? Those are questions to be answered. But I mean, you're losing a guy with a lot of coaching experience. A guy who was a big time recruiter as well. He was the recruiting coordinator. So I mean, it's a significant loss to the coaching staff. He's a guy who had a lot of experience, was a head coach at Marist, though that didn't really go very well at the time. But still, it's experience, and a lot of college basketball kind of revolves around experience and having it, and continuity as well. Be it roster or coaching staff. So it's a significant loss. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see where they go with the next hire, be it an assistant coach or if they elevate one of Tyler Eulis or Brad Calipari. Who do they bring in to do that, or do they elevate a GA to one of those positions if that happens? So I don't know. It's interesting.
The continuity point that is a word I think that gets it gets overused in college sports.
Yeah,
we got to have continuity. And I agree that it can be beneficial. I can really see where it can be beneficial. Like if you've got a staff of people who have all worked together for say 5 years or more, there's not a whole lot of questions in the workplace.
Yeah.
It's, I know what you're going to do. You know what I'm going to do. We know that we're going to get along. It's not always that way when you bring new voices in. They can challenge the status quo. But I think about, like Nick Saban at Alabama. I mean, think about in the last 10 years how much different Alabama looked than maybe the 10 years before that for him there. I mean, it's kind of been widely reported that it got to a certain point where he saw what the spread offense and the up-tempo and the RPO was doing to college football, and he really went against and you kind of did a 180 of what his offense had always been, what had been really successful for him, even up until that point. But I think he could kind of see that the game was changing, and he needed to be part of that change. So he goes and he gets Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin leaves, and they get Steve Sarkisian and Brian Dable as an offensive coordinator, and they really changed their views and their philosophies offensively. I think about Ohio State when they won a national championship a couple of years ago. I know it was the only year. I think it was the only year they had Chip Kelly on staff, which he and their head coach had a previous relationship, many years before. I think maybe even had played for Chip Kelly up in the Northeast, at New Hampshire. I can't remember if Jim Knowles was there for more than 1 year, but this was like the only year that they had those two coordinators, and it kind of lightning in a bottle. They lost the game to Michigan, but that was the only game that they lost that year, and they won a national championship. So I guess where I'm going with that is that, yes, you lose that continuity with Chuck Martin and Coleman and Payne and Cal and all these guys who have coached together for a while, but you may also add something. I mean, who knows what they're going to do here? Maybe they're able to bring somebody in who has some really creative ideas about the steps that it's going to take to put Arkansas basketball over the Sweet 16 hurdle and get them deeper into the postseason than they've been.
Yeah, no, I think that's a possibility, and I think you see that. Look at like Illinois, for example. Hadn't been to the Final Four since 2005, and then finally get in there this year. They added Orlando Antigua to that staff last year, and obviously they lost in the second round last year, but they get over that hump this year. Is that because they added Orlando Antigua? I'm not sure. That Illinois roster this year was awesome, and they had a great year regardless. But it's something to point out, I guess. But I think that's certainly possible. But then there's ways to look at it just on any way that you want to look at it. I mean, UConn won back-to-back national titles and made another Final Four with the same coaching staff. Now Luke Martin's going to take the job at Boston College, but Florida didn't get as far as it did, or didn't, get out of the Sweet 16 this year after losing a couple of coaches from last year's staff. So I mean, there are ways to look at it. That's definitely one way to look at it, and I think that's it's possible, right? I mean, sometimes it's good to get some new blood in the room if that's
sometimes
the way. Yeah,
sometimes it hurts you. Like
yeah.
Mark Few, I bet he wishes he had Tommy Lloyd on his staff still.
Probably.
Right? But I mean, you never know. But like Martin, he's going to go take this opportunity at North Carolina. I'm sure he's getting paid more, obviously bigger title. He's going to be like 57 years old by the time the season starts. And you mentioned he's been a head coach at Marist. I don't know if he's got any head coaching ambition anymore. I have yet really to meet a coach who doesn't kind of have that ambition in the back of their mind. But, maybe you have a bad experience. Kenny Payne at Louisville, does he ever want to be a head coach again? I don't know. But, it's if he wants to be a head coach again, this gives him maybe kind of that last, that last push to get back into the conversation to do it, because, you're no longer the number 3 man, you're the number 1 man on a staff. And certainly, if UNC has any measure of success, like if you're a UNC or a Kentucky or a Duke or, any program in that stratosphere, Kansas, if you have success, your program has success, then the assistant coaches, they just kind of automatically become more visible than I think assistant coaches at a lot of other programs.
Yeah, I mean, we just saw this with Duke, right? I mean, Evan Brad's just got the job at Belmont, which is a really good mid-major job. Yeah. So, I mean, you see that happen, a lot of times. So, I mean, I don't know if that's his ambitions at all. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But yeah, it's a good point to bring up, and it's an intriguing project over at UNC too. I mean, you don't see a ton of NBA coaches go into college, so I'm looking forward to see how that goes. Michael Malone is a guy who, he's a lot of people rave about his X's and O's, but how does he kind of transition into the college game, and how does that work with the portal and recruiting and all of that, because it's different than the NBA, right? I mean, they're almost two different sports. So, I'm intrigued by that, and
Yeah, maybe he'll try to get Nikola Jokic to be next year's Bediako, right?
I don't know. I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, I don't think so.
To be fully honest.
So I want to talk.
It'd be fun though.
I want to talk about some of these names that have been mentioned with Arkansas men's basketball in the transfer portal. The name that everybody is talking about right now is Somto Surreal, the big man at Georgia, committed to Calipari at Kentucky. I think maybe even had signed with him and got out of the letter of intent.
Yeah, when he left for Arkansas. Yeah.
So we saw him this year. I mean,
he played pretty well.
Had a good game against Arkansas. Had a good season. All SEC defensive player, averaged 9 points, 5 rebounds, SEC's block shots leader. And I said this when we were talking about, what does Arkansas need to do to get into the national championship conversation back on Tuesday, the night after the title game. I said they need not only Somto Surreal, they need like 2 or 3 more of him.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's an elite level rim protector, right? I mean, he averaged 2.2 blocks. All SEC defensive team. He had 8 blocks in the game against Arkansas. So I mean, he is. I mean, yeah, he's kind of the guy you look at immediately, just because he already has the connections and all of that.
And he's older.
And he is older.
And I know they've gone and they've gotten older big men like Jonas Adu and Malik Ewan, and we'll see what happens with Ewan. But with Surreal, it's like you're not going and like this is a different Somto Surreal. I feel like
than the one you would have gotten.
Than you would have gotten out of high school.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you look at how much he's kind of grown in his first 2 years of college. He's much more comfortable with the ball in his hands. I mean, he's not a guy you're gonna want bringing the ball up the floor by any means, but he's still he's more comfortable dribbling. Not that that's what you, like I said, not necessarily what you want him to do, but he's still more comfortable in that. He's a more comfortable offensive player than he was, and the defense has really become more well-rounded. Are there areas in which you would like to see him continue to grow in? Yeah, I think you immediately look at Georgia's NCAA tournament game against St. Louis, in which he kind of got pulled away from the basket a lot against, a 5-out offense like St. Louis runs. And, not to say, he wasn't the reason Georgia, got 40-pieced in that game, but, that's something to monitor, right? I mean, you need to be more comfortable in those situations. So, that's something to watch, I think, for sure. And, but he is, he's an elite level rebounder. He's an elite level, rim protector, and his offensive game has really come along throughout his college career. So he will be, for whoever gets him, a big time addition. And right now it kind of looks like it's between, Arkansas and Miami, Florida.
On3 rates him the number 2 center and the number 7 prospect in this year's portal. It's always interesting, by the way, to go back and look at like the previous years. The guy at Michigan, help me with his name, who went from UAB.
Yaxel Lindebor.
Yaxel. I mean, wasn't he the guy that everybody was saying you got to get last year? So I mean, that hit.
Oh yeah.
But then sometimes sometimes it doesn't. It's weird how that works, and it goes. I think what it really underscores is fit. It's you either fit in your new place or you don't, and when you're speed dating the way that this is happening in the portal, it's hard to figure that out.
And like you mentioned, sometimes that kind of yields success. Like Michigan had 5 transfers in its starting lineup this year and won a national title. And then on the other side of it, you have some teams where it didn't work out. You look at Oregon. Oregon went 12-20 and it was the first time Dana Altman's gone under 500 in his career, which is a remarkable record for a coach who's been in the game that long. But so
he did go 0-1 at Arkansas. If you know what I mean.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, it kind of underscores that. So the fit is obviously hugely important, and obviously he's a guy who if obviously we're all speaking in ifs here, but if you were to land at Arkansas, he already kind of fits with the coaching staff because he's already committed to them. He already knows them. He knows what they want and all of that. So. But obviously that's still up for question because, I think he had a visit with Georgia, or not with Georgia. He already was at Georgia. With Miami. I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaken there, but yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Dana Altman because I was thinking about that whole situation yesterday. April 2nd was the day that he took the job. April 3rd was the day he took the job or gave the job back. April 9th was the day they hired John Pelphrey. So every time I see April 9th, I think of John Pelphrey. I just do. That's how my brain works. But so I thought about Pelphrey yesterday when I saw the date, and which made me think about Altman and the whole process that it was insane. It was just totally crazy. That little scrum that we had back there at the back of Bud Walton Arena.
I want to do like a deep dive about those 24 hours.
Oh,
I think that would be a ton of fun to just research and write about.
I've talked to Kevin Trainer about this, about how Kevin drove the getaway car. He drove Dana Altman back to the airport where the Creighton jet was waiting for him to take him back to Omaha. One of the best pictures our newspaper, I think, has ever had is the Razorback Foundation jet landing at Drake Field. Frank didn't go pick up Dana Altman. Frank was in Fayetteville, which is crazy because it's almost always the AD goes, nowadays at least, the AD goes and they pick him up and, they have this kind of, photo op at the house, and then, you got your Hogs Plus on the plane and it's how this goes. Well, it's Altman stepping off of the Foundation jet and Frank dressed to the nines, nice suit, cufflinks, everything, hand out, shaking his hand as he steps off the plane. And then to think 24 hours later, the Creighton jet is sitting there to take him back to Omaha. It was it was wild. It was that was pretty fun. I don't know about fun. It was.
I imagine stressful to cover.
It's more fun in retrospect than it was in the moment.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah,
I remember getting the phone call. He's doing what? Yeah, be here in 15 minutes.
So what happened?
Okay, so Isaiah Johnson is a point guard at Colorado who apparently, this is according to On3, Arkansas, KU, and Texas are kind of in the lead to potentially get him to transfer. Averaged about 17 points per game last year, 3 assists, 3 rebounds per game. On3 rates him the number 1 point guard, the number 5 overall transfer. This is another one that we're watching fairly closely.
Yeah, no, he's good. I mean, he had a really nice, productive freshman year for Colorado. I mean, a Colorado team that wasn't very good, but I mean, still, he stepped in and had a really nice and productive year. Became a starter, kind of midway through Big 12 play, and I thought he was really nice. I mean, he's a guy who he's active on the defensive end. Doesn't draw a lot of fouls, or doesn't commit a lot of fouls, I should say. 2 fouls per 40 minutes was his average. But you like guys who are willing and active defenders who also aren't fouling, right? So you get that. He played, I think it was upwards of 80% of the minutes in Big 12 play, and you saw his role kind of expand throughout his freshman year. He's a little small at 6'1", a listed 6'1", so he's probably more like 5'11". But it's so he's a little undersized, a little undersized, but he's a good shooter. He gets to the basket, at a good rate. He was a top 100 guy at free throw rate in the country this season, and and he was just a freshman. So there's a lot to like there. So yeah, he's good. The Big 12 is obviously quite the good conference, especially at the top, and he was really productive in that league. So I like his game. I like what he brings. He's got decent assist rate, and his turnover rate wasn't all that high, or wasn't that bad either. So there's a lot to like about Isaiah Johnson, and then there's a lot to still improve. He's still he's just a freshman, or he was just a freshman.
Is Jordan Smith, is he a point guard?
He can be, but I think he's probably better off as an off-ball guard.
So you think they need to get a point guard to complement him?
I think that would be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I look at his stats.
Like,
he's got decent assist numbers, and I know we're talking about high school basketball, and that's but I don't think Darius Acuff was necessarily known as like a great passer before he came to college. I mean, that was one of the things they really wanted to work with him on, was being more of a distributor once he got to Arkansas. But I did see, by the way, Jordan Smith today got yet another National Player of the Year. I think it was USA Today.
He's quite good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
no, Jordan Smith. Like, his distribution has gotten a lot better, especially this year. His distribution's gotten a lot better. He's already, he's already a really high-level defensive guard, which, is something I think is important and, a need. So, yeah, he's a guy who, looks like he could be another one-and-done kind of guy. That's not necessarily a hot take. He's the number 2 prospect in his class. But, yeah, I mean, he's really good. And, if you go into next season and you're relying on Jordan Smith to be your primary ball handler, I don't think that you're in a bad spot by any means, but I do think that you probably want to bring in a point guard, especially because, let's face it, Darius Acuff's not coming back, and then you bring it, and then DJ Wagner's in the portal as well. So I think it would be smart to at the very least bring in another ball handler, and yeah, I think that would be smart.
This Alex Wilkins at Furman, you're pretty high on him, right? I mean, about 18 points a game, 5 assists, 2 rebounds is what he averaged this season. I'm looking here that kind of the big suspects are in on him. You're talking about UConn and Houston and Kentucky and Alabama. So
yeah, UConn got the front row seat in the NCAA tournament first round. I know obviously UConn made the national championship game, but Furman really put a scare into him in that 2-15 game. And Alex Wilkins was a big reason why. I mean, he had 21 points, 4 assists in that game, and he's awesome. I mean, he's another guy who's just a freshman. So there's a lot of room to grow. Furman obviously.
They play a fun style of basketball.
They do, yeah, and yeah, it's. I love his game. He gets downhill, he plays fast. He's shot 46% from the field, so he's relatively efficient. One area that you don't like with Alex Wilkins is that he averaged almost 4 turnovers a game, which that's not great. But like I said, he's a freshman. That's something that can be coached up, and you can deal with that stuff. So, but yeah, I love his game. This year's Furman team wasn't the same Furman team that beat Virginia a few years back, but it was still a team that played a fun brand of basketball, And yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of his game, but yeah, you need to see the turnovers go down a little bit.
Lots of guards. Terrence Brown, another one from Utah, about 20 points, 4 assists, 2.5 rebounds per game. Again, you look at Brown, just like you look at Wilkins and some of these. It's weird. Some of them, like, they don't allow their list to get very big. It's like, hey, I know I want to talk to you, and I want to talk to you. Or I want to talk to you three. Then you look at Brown, and I mean, you're talking
everybody.
about North Carolina and UCLA and KU and even Muss is in on this guy. But pretty good player out of Utah.
Yeah, no, he started his career at Fairleigh Dickinson. I don't think he was on the Fairleigh Dickinson team that beat Purdue a few years ago. I don't think he was. But he's good. I mean, he needs to his 3-point numbers need to go up. Only shot 32% from the perimeter, which, I mean, it's a respectable number, but it's not a number that you love to see. But he's got decent size, 6'3". He can score 19.9 points per game, and he was a really good driver to the basket, drew a lot of free throws, and yeah, he's another guy who's he's an aggressive on-ball defender, likes to get steals, doesn't get into a ton of foul trouble either. So, yeah, he's a guy I like a lot. Obviously, kind of, not coming from the greatest situation at Utah this year. Obviously, not the greatest Utes team of all time. One of the worst teams in Power Conference basketball this season. Unfortunately for them,
of all the teams, they were one. Right.
They were one of the teams in college basketball this year. But, he's an exciting guy. So, obviously he's a guy who can fill it up. And, they need scorers, especially if Malik Thomas is going to stay in the draft. He hasn't declared for the draft yet, but you would assume that he'll at least test it. And if he tests it and stays in, then you probably want to go and find somebody who's a very capable scorer. And he's a guy who fits that bill, though he, like I said, not the greatest 3-point shooter in the world, but he's a good defender. He can score, get to the free throw line, and all of that stuff, despite, Utah having a pretty stinky year.
When you think of Utah basketball, who's the first player that comes to mind?
Oh, man. Well, right now, Terrence Brown.
like you don't go back any further than Terrence Brown?
Never.
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
I'll tell you
I mean, Utah is like a top 20, top 25, like, all-time program. So, I mean, it's...
Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe top 25.
Yeah.
Certainly, like, if you're saying top 30, top 40, I would...
Oh, certainly. Sure. Oh, certainly in that range, yeah.
I think of the guys, like, from the Rick Majerus years.
Rick Majerus. He's loved. You
Keith,
know where they love Rick Majerus?
In St. Louis.
That's right.
That's right. How about Keith Van Horn? Was a big man on those teams. Andre Miller was their point guard. Got him to a national championship game against Kentucky one year. I don't know.
I would like to see Utah become good again. I think that would be fun.
Is the state big enough for 2 or 3 good basketball programs?
I think so.
BYU and Utah State have kind of got it going right now.
They do. I mean, Utah State is my favorite team ever because they lose a coach every year, but then they're still good the next year. That's awesome.
Hey, speaking of, and we're not going to go through all these names. By the way, if you want to go and read kind of an exhaustive list of some of the top names Arkansas has made contact with, Richard Davenport's got a good story on our site at wholehogsports.com. The headline says, Arkansas basketball makes early contact with prospects in the transfer portal. We'll talk about a couple more here real quick. Rob Wright is at BYU, point guard, 18 points, 4.5 assists, 3.5 rebounds this year for them. He's got a little bit smaller of an interest list. It's Arkansas, Kentucky, and Ohio State.
Yeah,
and they rate him the number 2 point guard in the portal.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, another guy who is, he's got some experience, right? I mean, he played at Baylor, played at BYU. So, I mean, he's played for 2 tournament teams, because they made the tournament at Baylor when he was there. And,
Can I interject real quick? Johnson and Wright are 1-2 in their portal rankings at point guard. So it's, if you get one of them, you aren't getting both.
Happy. Yeah. So, I mean, Rob Wright is good. I mean, he commands a price tag. I don't remember what it was reported that he got at BYU when he went there, but he's a guy who, and I mean, all of these guys are going to, right? So And, I mean, he's a guy who, he's good in distribution. I think he's a decent, on-ball defender as well. Obviously he can score it. And, before Richie Saunders went down and BYU was really kind of humming, he was a big reason they were doing that. I mean, he was the primary ball handler on that team. And, that BYU offense is a ton of fun to watch when one of the key pieces of it isn't out for the season. And, he was a big reason for that. And, I think that he's going to be a big-time addition for whoever gets him. And, I'm excited to see where he goes because, he's really good in distribution, I think. And then, obviously, he's a scorer as well.
One more. You're going to have to help me with his first name. Kansas State guard. Is it
Abdi Bashir.
Abdi Bashir.
Yeah.
Really good three-point shooter.
Yeah, 44% from three. Started his career at Monmouth, and, he averaged 20 points per game there his final season at Monmouth. And, this year, he averaged 13 points per game, but he shot, 44% from the three-point line. So, I mean, you're getting a guy who can shoot regardless. Kansas State was bad. So,
when he had the injury, so I think
that too. So, I mean, part of that does kind of maybe come down to that, but still, I mean, that Kansas State team was not good. 12-20 this year, and obviously didn't play any postseason. But he's a guy who I think is good in catch and shoot situations. He was heavily wanted in the portal when he was leaving Monmouth, and there's a reason for that. I mean, he's a big time player, and when you shoot the ball as well as he does, you're going to you can fill a role in a lot of teams, I guess is the best way to put it.
You think he's one of those K-State players that wouldn't have gotten a jersey this year? What the press conference?
They took the names off the jerseys.
Yeah, but there was the press conference that got what was his name?
Jerome
Tang. Got him fired. I think it was.
Yeah, there are a lot of guys who won't be wearing.
They won't be wearing that jersey next year.
I mean, technically, I guess he was right.
I guess so.
So, and sorry to Jerome Tang. You never want to see anybody lose their jobs or anything, but that was funny.
Hey, real quick before we get out of here, a couple of women's basketball notes. Bonnie Dees has announced she's going to transfer to UCLA, the national
Not
champion.
A bad landing spot.
Well, it kind of surprised. I think it's a little bit surprising. Number one, I think Arkansas is going to miss her.
Oh, of
because
course.
she was a lot of fun to watch.
5'9" and averaged 9 rebounds a game.
Just relentless on the boards.
I thought she was shooting efficiency. You probably want to see it go up, but
it's interesting to me that you go from being a player that the Razorbacks would love to build around, and not just Arkansas, a lot of teams.
Yeah.
I see her going to UCLA, and I wonder how much does she play there? That's just my thoughts on this. I know UCLA, I think they're going to lose a lot of the players that were part of this championship team. I think they were a very senior-laden team.
Yeah.
But I just wonder. I wonder, maybe they love her and the hustle and everything, and she gets on the floor a lot. But I also know that, women's basketball, there's like a handful or, somewhere around maybe less than 10 programs where all the best players, they congregate. And, it feels like whatever's shiny, that's where they go. So UCLA is like the shiny program in women's basketball right now. So I wonder what that's going to look like, like what other kind of players are they going to be able to command? Because we've seen good players leave Arkansas or what we thought were good players, good recruits. And they go and they play at other programs where, they go to South Carolina and they never play, or they go to LSU and they never play. So I wonder if this is going to be another one of those for Bonnie Dees. But good luck to her. She was a lot of fun to watch this year.
Yeah, no, she was a lot of fun. Like I said, really good at crashing the boards, especially at her size. Being a smaller guard, and she was really kind of the primary ball handler in that team as well. And I think like you said, that's a player you probably want to build around, especially her being a freshman this year. And I thought I was also kind of surprised that UCLA was the team that she ended up landing on, but it's maybe they see her as a player that they can use right away, and because obviously she has a year of experience, a year of playing college basketball after playing FIBA for a long time. So maybe that experience is really beneficial, and she becomes a big part there right away. And I mean, then you're also living in Los Angeles, and UCLA is like maybe the most beautiful campus I've ever seen. So I mean, that's not too bad.
To each their own. I couldn't do LA.
I love LA.
No, I couldn't do it.
I love LA. And then UCLA's campus is like, it's stunning.
Too big. Too many people. Not for me.
I loved Los Angeles. I love New York. I love San Francisco. I'm a city boy, I guess. But
there's a house in my neighborhood that just went up for sale this week, and so I got on Zillow to look up, like what do they want for it, and then just I'm nosy. I want to see the pictures from inside my neighbor's house, and so but there's these drone shots of our neighborhood, and we don't have a huge, but we've got a big yard. Like it's hard to get a yard as big as what, like we got really fortunate with the yard, and but this drone shot. Like I look at it, it's like, man, everybody's houses are, I mean, it's not. We don't live in the Bridgewater Estates. Let's put it that way. Like we're not talking about that much room between our houses, but like there's a decent amount of room between people's houses. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, if that was in Los Angeles, do you know how many houses you would see in that? Like
between each house.
Let's say you can see 400 places where 400 people are living. I mean, it'd be like 40,000 as densely populated as that is.
Oh, it is very densely populated.
Speaking of
LA, like UCLA is. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, UCLA is just. I mean, it's a gorgeous campus. Like so.
I'll take your word for it. Hey, speaking of California, one more. Arkansas did get a women's basketball commitment yesterday from Grace McCollop. I hope I'm saying her name right. She's been at Cal. She's from Kansas City, so this gets her a lot closer to home. This looks kind of like a depth piece. She didn't play a whole lot at Cal. I think she only averaged like 1.5 rebound per game, less than 5 minutes. I'm sure that you don't make a move like this to Arkansas unless there's a pretty good understanding that you're going to play more than you were playing there. But that's the first player that they've got in the fold in terms of transfers that are coming into the program, and boy, do they need a lot of them. I think they were down. I was talking to somebody the other day. I think they were down to 2 players on their roster.
Emily Robinson and I'm drawing a blank on who else is still there. This is embarrassing.
But it's I mean, you're talking about they gotta fill a lot of roster spots this offseason.
Yes, they do.
And that's tough.
They've got some freshmen coming in as well.
It's tough with where Arkansas women's basketball is. I mean, it's 2 years of being really bad, especially in the SEC.
Yeah, it's a rebuilding project, that's for sure. And you want to try to get some experienced pieces out of the portal, and I would imagine, like you said, she probably McCollop is probably coming in here thinking that she's probably going to play some more than she did over at Cal, and so I mean, and she was a recruited player as well coming out of high school. So I mean, she's obviously got some talent, and somebody who can develop into a bigger piece down the line. I mean, she won 3 state championships as a high school player. So, and I think that's also something that you like as well as a player who's used to winning. And that's I think something that a lot of the time goes a little underappreciated when you're building rosters out of the portal. So, yeah.
All right, so there's kind of a look at portal for Arkansas men's basketball, women's basketball a little bit too. You can read about the latest developments, and this stuff changes so fast and so rapidly. It seems like
I don't sleep.
I mean, like I would think that we probably start having a pretty good feel of what the next year's roster looks like in the next 10 to 14 days.
I would agree.
Sound
with
about
that.
right?
Yeah.
So you can read our website, wholehogsports.com. Anthony and Richard Davenport are all over this basketball portal stuff. It's going to be a busy weekend for us. There's a couple of big series, baseball and softball. Baseball Razorbacks at Alabama this weekend. Alabama ranked number 9. The softball Razorbacks are at Mississippi State. Mississippi State ranked number 15. I think there's a track meet coming up this weekend. We got a lot going on. Basketball's over.
Yeah.
Basketball's over, but there's still a lot going on here on campus.
Yeah.
You can read about all of it at wholehogsports.com. Spring football as well there at our website. We'll be back. Spring soccer.
I'll be out there tomorrow.
Who are they playing?
Tomorrow? Seminole State.
Okay.
Which, fun fact, is where Anaya Nurse-White transferred to Arkansas from, and she just got her first Canadian national team call-up.
Very cool.
So, congratulations to her.
So you got a story about
Yeah,
that on our
just a
site
quick
too.
little one. Yep.
All right, so we'll be back here in studio on Monday. Bubba Carpenter will be with me. We'll be talking Razorback baseball. Let's see what happens down in Tuscaloosa. Hope to see you then. Have a great weekend.